idea. Now you have your class coming up, right? In a week. Wednesday. Do you want my violets when I'm done? I was just going to talk about like how easy it is to have some natives. So.
I don't know. I haven't really gotten to what I want to say.
Okay.
Because I was working on this and other things, and it's like once this is over, I can concentrate on that. That's the way I have to work.
So you are way ahead of me.
Oh. Well, I just did a lot of printing.
Yeah.
Polly. This is for now.
Yeah.
And they can use this, that's why they're getting all of this. So I'll just go over what I have. No, I work for pollinators.
I was going to say, I should have told you I would do your printing.
Okay,
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm really committed to this.
Okay.
Yeah, she is beyond committed.
It's kind of an obsession, but I feel that whatever I contribute in money is what I want to do.
Okay. All right. So you feel what? Yeah.
No problem at all.
Hello, everybody. I hope we have people coming. One of our presenters forgot something in the car, and we're going to give people a few more minutes to get here, okay? But thank you. We'll be starting in a couple minutes.
I'll just leave it here and hold it up.
All right, I think we'll get started. Okay. Today, we have a treat. We're going to talk about the Pittsford Pollinator Pathway project, which a lot of alliteration. So we have Mary Moore from Pittsford Pollinator Pathway, and we have associate Arlene Meyer, who's part of Color Pittsford Green, and they're going to tell us a little bit about native gardening and what it would be on the Pittsford Pollinator Pathway and so forth. Is that about it? All right. Thank you so much for coming.
Hi, everyone. I moved into my house about 40 years ago. Really close? Okay. About 40 years ago. And it was owned by a landscaper. And I thought, we're done. We don't have to do anything other than maintain it. Even closer? Okay. So you have to really lean in. So I didn't think we'd have to do anything with our property. A landscaper had set it up, and we were good to go. Over time, and after meeting people like Mary, who were into native gardening and trying to preserve our earth for the next generation, I realized that just about everything we owned in our yard was not native, and it was not feeding pollinators, and it really wasn't helping the next generation, my kids and their kids, have a better world. So I got involved with Color Pittsford Green. It's a volunteer group. There are Color Your Community Green groups all over Monroe County in the city. Some are more active than others. They have their own newsletters, so you can go in and look up the Pittsford newsletter,
Penfield has a very active newsletter, and one of the missions is healthy yards. Not just native planting, but healthy yards to not use pesticides, not use herbicides, and look towards changing over from not only non-native plants, which I described up there, but even worse is invasive plants. We have a real issue in all our communities with invasive species. They looked pretty, maybe they were easy to maintain. The boxwood plant, which you see on every golf course style property, boxwood supports 2 or 3 insects that will either nest on it, live in it, or maybe eat it, compared to some of the alternatives which support 15, 20, 25 species. So it's about picking the right plants for the insects that we have. And so that's really what native is. Native plants and animals and insects, they've evolved in a given place, so they've been here for hundreds of years. Time to sufficiently develop a complex and essential relationship. What does that mean? They have predators that keep them in check. They're also predators to keep other species in check, and our ecosystem is in balance. Invasives tend to be very aggressive, and they're successful because they have no predators. So right now, unfortunately, near and dear to my heart is we're losing about 20 hemlock trees on our property. And it's due to an invasive species called the woolly adelgid. And it is a tiny bug that invades the plant. It ends up all over the fine ferns, all over the evergreens, and it sort of eats the life out of it. It has no predator. So the hemlocks in our area, in the Catskills, in the Adirondacks, are being devastated. So that's why we're so insistent that not only is it important to have native species, it's important to make sure we're not introducing invasive species. The good news about the woolly adelgid situation may not help my yard, but right now down in Harriman, New York, in one of the forests, they've introduced a new beetle that it appears to have predators, so it's not another invasive species, but it kills the woolly adelgid. So there's a study going on right now, and I can send you that link. It's really a great read about a positive for the earth, that this invasive species, the woolly adelgid, came in through potted plants that came from other countries. And in those countries, there was they did have a predator. So it kept this woolly adelgid pest in check. But when it came to the United States on plants from greenhouses, it had no predator, and it has taken over. And I'm talking about, we have 70 and 80-foot hemlocks that are dead to within 6 feet of the top. We don't think we can save them. We've had an arborist at our home. So if that's happening in my yard in Pittsford, you can imagine what's happening in the Catskills and the Adirondacks. So the good news is people are more aware of the importance of natives, but the importance of not introducing any more invasives. So I list lifelong learners on here because I qualify as a lifelong learner. I think it's important that we can start anytime, whether it's working on the grounds here, whether it's at a park where a group of people get together and pull out invasives and plant some natives. Doesn't have to be 100%. Anything that moves us in the right direction is a good thing to do this year. And next year we do a little more and a little more. The town of Pittsford, and I know other towns, but I just happen to be familiar with how many areas within Pittsford, they are planting native plants. Pittsford is paying for the cost, they're removing invasives, working in the right direction. So that is really good. So sometimes, I think just recently, Bill Smith from the town of Pittsford spoke on the news. He was interviewed, and he did speak about the various areas where they're putting native plants in. It's a great thing. I attended one of the town environmental board meetings, and there's a very large complex being built on the corner of Jefferson and Clover Street. And they were required to have a certain percentage of native plants in their plans. That's very new, and it's inspiring to know that we're moving in the direction that our government is saying, yes, you can build here, but in addition to all the other building requirements, you need to have native plants as part of your plan. So that's really great news. So Mary and I actually participated in a pollinator steward program, and it was a 15-week class. So I'm just at the beginning, I feel like, of learning about natives, but I have been over the last 2 or 3 years planting natives in the gardens around the property, trying to salvage the ones we did have, Sister Maria Kellner and Sister Jean Rodman and other people who were instrumental in putting in the gardens. We're trying to make sure we find those natives and keep them prevalent on the property as much as possible. So why native plants? We talked a little bit about this. They're adapted to our climate. They're probably a little more resilient to mornings like this, where it's snowing in April and the plants need to flourish despite the weather. They need less water and additions to the soil. That's a great thing. So they are resilient to drought. We don't need to be constantly fertilizing. Those plants grew up here. They are native to this area. They've evolved over time to survive well in this soil and to propagate. They provide wildlife support. They follow a timeline, which, sometimes the weather doesn't always cooperate with that timeline, but they blossom when the different bees emerge, when the different pollinators emerge. We have the plants that come out at that right time. So one example is my little violet here. My yard is full of wild violets. And I had one area of lawn, I kept digging them out. This was, pre-education about native plants. And then last year I just realized, why am I mowing? Why am I digging them out? And I had probably 6 by 10, 6 by 15 foot area of just violets last year, all different colors, and the butterflies were all over them. I didn't have to mow it. The butterflies and the other pollinators were happy, and the deer ended up eating a few, but that's okay, I had a lot. So sometimes it's very simple, just knowing what's already on your property or on this property. Is there stuff in the meadow that's doing very good that we could move up into some of the gardens? No cost, native plants, the pollinators love them. So sometimes the answers are easier than we think. I have to give a shout out to some of these slides are from Sarah Sutton. She is part of Color Pittsford Green. She has her own native plant business and gardening company, and she has been instrumental in educating, prompting the town to make changes. And so some of these slides were prepared with the help of Sarah. So I tried to kind of make a list of what I knew and remembered was here on the property. So obviously in the meadow, and when I refer to that, it's the back of the property beyond the roadway. It is a protected area. We have milkweed, we have native grasses, and we have some variations of black-eyed Susans. Not all black-eyed Susans are as good as others for pollinators. Some of them are cultivated for color, but over the years, a lot of stuff has been dumped over the hill, and it's growing and spreading, and so there's some great native plants in the meadow. At the St. John the Baptist Shrine, as you come around the sharp corner in the back, I've put in bee balm, New England asters, evening primrose. Some primroses are native, and I think that may be it. We tried a few other things, and the bunnies and the deer decided that I had put out a charcuterie board. The beloved Alleluia Garden, which is more on the east side of the property, which was maintained for years by Sister Maria Kellner, and I was her gardener for a long time. There's a lot of bee balm in there, and obedient plant. There's nothing really invasive, but a lot of just general, nice-looking flowers and bulbs, but they aren't all supportive of pollinators. And so what we want to do is mix in plants that are better supporters, better host plants for the pollinators that we want to attract. And the courtyard right now, I'm familiar with the asters, and Mary Ellen put in some turtle head plants. She planted those within the last year. And I just looked this morning and realized there's also some true geraniums. They're a native geranium, not the cultivated ones that we get at the garden store now. But they get a nice purple flower on them. They're very hardy, and the deer hate the smell of them. So even though there's no deer in the courtyard, it's a great idea for other gardens that we have. So I think the takeaway that I have is that here on the property, when I was involved with the gardening, and I hope to do that again, we're going to be doing some hanging baskets. We're going to, on the patios, we're going to be doing some window boxes. The idea is we're just going to add native plants. They don't have to be out in the gardens. They can be on the patios. They can be hanging baskets. The hummingbirds and the butterflies and the bees, all the flies and bugs that we don't even think about as pollinators, they'll find them. So we have an upcoming activity where we're going to visit a garden store. We're going to get some fun plants and some native plants, and we're going to plant window boxes and hanging baskets as an activity. I think it's maybe May 9th is the date we have. So Mary Moore is going to join us. She knows a lot more about native plants than I do, and she's been instrumental in the pollinator pathway here in Pittsford, and she'll give you more information. You're up.
Have my guys up here?
Do I have you up?
Okay, here they are.
You're right there.
All right.
And you want this too?
No, but I'm loading these. Can I put these down? Different sections. Hi, everybody. I'm Mary, and I have a lot of papers and printed material. Mostly it's for Holly and for your landscaper, because even though we can plant and do all kinds of nice things, sometimes the landscapers come in and totally do what they want to do. So it's good to educate them too as to what you want for your property. Arlene has already mentioned why we need native plants, and I have here the philosophy of Doug Tallamy. He's the one who inspired me. The book is Bringing Nature Home. He also has one on Nature of Oaks. He's an entomologist, lives in Pennsylvania now, but he was a professor in Delaware. But he has this wonderful philosophy. I'm going to leave in case you need to say why we need these things. So this one is just a little excerpt. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but it says, so many animals depend on insects for food. Examples are spiders, reptiles, amphibians, rodents, bats, and 96% of our birds. So removing insects, like we like to do, is from an ecosystem, spells its doom. So the native plants bring the insects, and they eat the native plants, so that's why we need them too. I just want to talk a little bit about, I have lots of lists that can be used, but let's go to the Pittsford Pollinator Pathway. Not sure how to. Then we'll get back to these.
Yep, great.
Okay. Yeah, everything at once. So the Pittsford Pollinator Pathway, some of the people from Color Pittsford Green, we wrote this program, and the Pittsford accepted it. And what it is we have a three-part. We have the list of plants, and you choose from this list or another list, which I also have for you. This is a list of trees, shrubs, native perennials, and perennials, when you plant them, you have to have some for the early season bloom, because then they will die back. The mid-season bloom, which is the summer, and then the late season bloom. Late season bloom is really important because a lot of people, after the flowers stop, they, pull them out or forget about them. But it's really important for the bees at that time. We also provide water sources. Even bees need water. Provide shelter, and I'll talk about that in a moment. And then our step 4 is to avoid pesticides. So what happens is somebody takes this, a resident, we have 77 people who have done this. They choose 10 plants, any of them, tree, shrub. They bring it to the community center, which is on Lincoln, and they receive this nice little sign. Okay. So, yes, if they choose to. Some people don't want to advertise it, but, we would like that to happen. So this is the Pittsford Pollinator Pathway. No charge, no questions asked. Okay, no one looks at your paper and says, oh, you didn't do that one, or you have only 9. Okay, we do this on your honor because we know that you want to have native plants. Since you all don't have these lists, I do want to say that we also have a list from the Master Gardeners from Monroe County Extension, and they also can be chosen. This is a nice list because it tells you whether it's a host plant. Now, what are host plants? They're the plants that the butterflies and moths use to lay their eggs. Without them, they don't lay their eggs. It's just really pretty simple, but complicated, This gives the height, the lighting you used, the soil moisture, and whether it has severe deer damage. So the deer are, I love them too. I live in an apartment now, but outside the apartment, 2 little fawns came. I mean, they're just adorable, right? But I did cage fence my native plant garden. First I had about 6 feet high, and it was that flexible kind of webbing. And I had a cut leaf coneflower, which grows pretty tall, grows to about 3 feet, and it did. And a deer just went right over the fence with its head and took the top off. So I was like, oh, well, now what do I do? We don't hate deer, right? We have to live with them. So we have to find ways to still have our gardens. I did put in an 8-foot fence with help from my son. It's really not that hard to do, and I haven't had any more deer damage. So we all have the same problem with that. So that's another list. Okay. I also have a list that may be something that a landscaper could use, or you could suggest. It's called soft landings. And what this is when the when the butterflies and moths lay their eggs, they do not finish their whole life cycle. And they actually fall to the ground. I didn't know that. I was amazed at that. No, I didn't know. And so if the leaves are not there, they can't exist, okay? They will die. They don't have the coverage. So we're finding that taking care of pollinators is important in summer and winter, all year, just like you take care of your children or your nieces or nephews or yourself. You don't stop. We still have to take care of them. So this is soft landings, and what it is a suggestion to put plants under the trees, under native trees. And there's a whole list in here again of, for almost every state, of suggested. I think still that you might have to put a small area, maybe a fencing around it. It doesn't have to be really tall, okay? So it can be low, just to protect it, because they graze. They'll be down like this. If they can't find it, it'll stay there. They also will take larger plants too, but at least you can get a start on it. I have another list, and this is important because we do have different kinds of bees. So there are generalist bees, like bumblebees, will go to almost any plant to get its nectar and its pollen. So the difference between the two is you have nectar, which is the sweet stuff that everybody likes, but the pollen is what gives them nutrition. It's what they bring back to their nests for the young. If they don't have that particular pollen, they can't feed their young. So there are specialist bees. About a third of our bees are specialists. And on this, it tells you the pollen specialist bees and which plants they need. Okay. Getting more complicated, right? Oh, by the way, yesterday, I had a visitor to my bedroom. It was a queen bumblebee. I don't know how it got in there, but it was huge. That's pretty huge for a bee. They do not sting. And so I got my plastic cup and put it over it and put I had a piece of cardboard and took it outside. Hopefully it will find a place to nest near my garden. And I think it was there because it knew, because some of the plants are coming up. There are no blooms on them yet, but I think it was there because that was welcoming to it, I hope. And so, native bees often nest in the ground. So when you talk about ground bees, those are native bees. You do have to be careful during that nesting time not to disturb them. But otherwise, once they're out, they're not really looking to sting you. The only reason would be if you went to their nest. Now, that's different from wasps, but mostly the native bees are just looking to eat and raise their young. Any questions about that? I'm not a biologist or anything. I just found all this about. Okay, the second part. I just wanted to give you some plants that let me go back here. These are some plants. We have what we call a bird harbor, which is a pollinator area up in Great Embankment. And these are the plants that kind of jumped the fence, but they haven't been eaten by deer. And I like to, give you those so that if you're putting some shrubbery in, most of them are shrubs, you can be pretty sure that these will not be, devoured. The first one here is northern sea oats. There's the summer and then the winter part of it. And you'll notice that it has the two long names, which I'm not even going to pronounce. But that's all you need when you buy native plants. Don't buy anything with an extra little thing on it. And then we have mountain mint, which I love. It's got such a beautiful smell. It smells like, remember the old Lifesavers were wintergreen? Do you remember that smell? That taste was just a little different from peppermint. That's the smell of this leaf. I mean, you can smell it even as you go close to it. So mountain mint is great because the deer don't like mint. They also don't like onion. I can understand it. So the mountain mint would be perfect. It grows, shrub about that big, but it'd be perfect to put near your perennials if you have them, or another shrub that may be eaten, so that the deer get that smell and maybe don't bother it. It does spread, but it's easy to take out, so really don't have to worry about it. That's what it looks like all the time. There's no other bloom to it. This is one of my favorites. This is bee balm, and I think you said you have bee balm. So the monarders, there's another monarder too, but this is fistulosa. And this one is a lavender. It has jumped the fence. It's all over the place up there. The thing about native plants is, though, that once this is finished with its work, it will, die back in the sense that the blooms will fade. So that's the kind of thing where you might want to have other color in there. You want to have another plant, just because it's good for people to look at native plants and say, oh, they're beautiful, instead of what happened to them. So this is great for bees. I have, I don't know if the picture's on here, but I have a picture of a bee sitting right on the bee balm. Is that one on there? Just resting there. It just stayed there. It just sat on that bee balm. And it's amazing, I find that amazing. So another one that we have is the anise hyssop. This is a licorice smell to it. And if you can see it, it's the purple growing up there. Very pretty plant. Again, it doesn't seem to be that attractive to deer. You never know, though, if there's a hungry fawn that doesn't know any better. They may nibble at it, but it's pretty good for that. Right, so, okay, I'll go into my next part of why we have to care about pollinators in winter. And I have, so here's what happens if, say just a picture there, if you were to throw away all those leaves or put them in a bag, or even if you were to mulch them, okay, broken them up. That's what you might throw away. Okay, so those particular insects will not be able to complete their life cycle. There's an article in the New York Times, so I'm going to leave all this with Holly. Why leaving the leaves is better for your yard. So native plants are actually making the New York Times. There's quite a few articles about, different people who are growing them. This was based on a 2-year study, and they actually counted the number of insects that came up from the ground or were on the ground in a non-pesticide yard. So they had a picture on here, two kind of netting. One had leaves in it, and one didn't. And the one that had leaves had many, many more insects, okay? I won't give you all, but the specifics are here. So we need to keep the leaves. Now, how do you do that? Because everybody hates leaves. They don't want them around. You know, the best way is to put them under your flower bed or a place where they're not so noticeable. You know, we do need to clean up leaves. They get into drains and things like that. But try to keep them, especially under native trees, because that's where they fall. I have an article, too, from a very good group called Wild Ones, and they have ideas for leaves, what to do with them. And this would be something you might want to add to your landscaper, a person who's doing the leaves, and, you know, up to you how you want to handle that. But I like this a lot because it actually tells you how thick to pile your leaves. So you don't want a great big pile like this because no insects can come up through that. So for garden beds and borders, they have so many inches around trees and shrubs, inches. If you want to keep any on the turf or the grass, don't want to keep too many there, no more than ½ an inch. So that's just, you know, a couple of leaves out there. So I'll leave this too for you. Also in winter, believe it or not, in winter you're creating habitat for stem nesting bees. So bees do go into the open areas of native plants, the stems, and they live there. So you are to not cut back the dead stalks. They stay up, and actually they look very pretty because the snow falls on them, and you have kind of something there. You know, it's not just barren earth. In the summer, the new growth comes up. The bees are developing in the cut dead stems, and then the bees hibernate in the stems during the winter, and then in spring again, it starts again. So I have a native plant. I have 2 native plant gardens. One is in the community gardens, which is really where most people grow vegetables, but I'm growing native plants. And I'm providing, I think, the pollinators for those vegetables. So it's important too. But I just cut back my stems a little bit so they weren't so high. So you can do that too. You want to have a nice aesthetic look to it also. Because a lot of people think, and a lot of our names for our native plants are weeds. So butterfly weed is a gorgeous plant. It's bright orange and it attracts monarchs. But it's called a weed. But butterfly bush, which gives nectar but doesn't provide the pollen that the bees need, has a nice name, you know, butterfly bush versus butterfly weed. So we have milkweed, we have Joe Pye weed, and they're all wonderful plants for our pollinators and birds. But I think, and just my idea, that when people saw them, they look like weeds, and I don't know where weeds came into our language. So this is another thing that you might, want to do. I have more. We had a person from the extension, and she did a program on 10 ways to combat climate change in your yard. And basically, it's pretty much what we've been saying, but it also has more ideas. This is lawn care without pesticides. Okay? This did not come from our extension, it came from Rockland County, but it's basically all that you want to know. So you have, selecting the proper grass, disease management, insect management, pest management. Again, might want to share this with, with whoever is working. Okay. So I also have this booklet. Arlene talked quite a bit, and rightly so, about invasives. This is something that I got from Genesee Valley Audubon Society, and it actually has the pictures of the worst invasives, okay, as far as plants. So I'm going to leave this here. If you find any, you want them out. Where do you get your plants? Again, Arlene mentioned Sarah Sutton, but this is another one, Amanda's Native Garden, and she has a huge selection. You know, there's no big greenhouse there, just plants in the ground. They stay there all winter. And then she takes them out and puts them into, you know, pots and sells them. So they're, and some are from local seed. They're very, very native, in other words. Her website is great too. It will give you great ideas, great pictures. She's having her first, they live in Dansville, but she comes up at least, I would say, 5 or 6 times up in this area. And her first one is going to be at Impact Earth. That's at, it's on Monroe Avenue. I think that's April 26th. So she'll bring a whole selection of plants, and you know, you can get them then, or you can order them, and she will deliver them for a little bit extra. It's not very much. I also have this book again, going to Holly, I guess. So I teach, or I have a program, a class that I teach on native plants every year. This will be my 4th year. It's just one night. But I found this, that's from Wisconsin, but it's called Prairie Nursery. It's totally native plants. But it has such wonderful pictures and wonderful articles. It talks about, can't find them right now, but it talks pretty much about what both Arlene and I have said, why it's important to have native plants and so on. Protecting water quality, and we'll have a whole article on. So I give these out. Now, the thing about when you order from someplace that's not here, you just have to, you can look at the genus, which is the first name. That's the big group plant. But the species may be different because they have a different, you know, growing soil, climate, and so on. So you just have to make sure that you're getting the same genus, but using one of our lists from here. But and a lot of them are the same species that grow also on the prairie. All that for you. And I just wanted to mention, Pollinator Week is coming up. It's June 22nd and June 28th. You can find lots of information on here, pollinator.org. I'm trying to, I'm going to have, I think, 2 programs at the library. One is the Mosquito Bucket Challenge. So we're trying to get people to have an alternative to spraying, because spraying for mosquitoes doesn't do much. You have to get to the larvae. So with the bucket, you have something, it's called BT, put it in the bucket and some water, and it attracts mosquitoes and kills them without hurting anybody else. And then the second one is the butterfly puddler. Butterflies also need minerals. I did actually visit Mexico quite a few years ago now to see the monarch butterflies come in there. It was quite an adventure. You have to walk quite a bit to it, and you go past women who are making these wonderful tortillas. It was great. But as I'm walking, I see all these butterflies in front of me, but they're on the ground. Like, it was a muddy kind of spot, kind of wet. I mean, there must have been 200 of them. And they were all getting the minerals from the earth. So they need that too. So if you want to attract butterflies and you have a particular, you know, you can find lists that will tell you what native plants attract butterflies the most. You also need a space where, kind of muddy space. I'm going to put it into a dish of some kind and attract them. A little salt goes in there because there's so many minerals in salt. And And anyway, I'll be doing that for Pollinator Week and also bringing around the Pollinator Pathway Challenge to a couple of groups. I'm hoping to have it in the birdhouse and then in one of the hardware stores. And where else? The bookstore. So that people are reminded that we do have pollinators and that they're really important. So any way you can celebrate this in your own way, can certainly celebrate. Oh, I'm also going to ask Wegmans, high-flying idea, to put maybe a little sign by some of their produce that says, pollinated by native bees or pollinated by honeybees. By the way, honeybees are different from native bees in the sense that they're not native. They are from Europe. Not that we hate them. I eat honey every day. I couldn't do without honeybees. But what we're concentrating on are the native bees because there's been such a decline in their number, way, way down. And if we don't take care of them each in our own way, I don't know, we won't have them. Butterflies too. Okay. I think that was it. Was that enough?
So do people have
Are
questions?
you all awake?
Comments? I have one quick one about so to become, like, if you want to be, have your Pittsford Pollinator Pathway sign, it's a matter of the 10 plants and then no pesticides. I thought there were some other elements to it.
Yeah, you need some water, which you have in
We have water.
abundance. And the leaves covering some kind of cover. Now they give you some, what do I do with it? I'm sorry, I could. They give you choices of cover.
Okay.
Yeah, so cover would be, water is bird bath or shallow, the butterfly puddling area. Am I talking about the water garden or pond? Okay. You have a stream or spring, of course, which is, you have, beautiful water here. So that would be fine. The shelter is spaces of bare ground because, again, they nest in the ground. Rock pile or wall, dead wood. Not every piece of wood has to be taken out. The insects love that cover. You pick up a piece of wood and you see little things crawling around, right? And they're trying to live. Man-made box or leave garden cleanup. Now, they say until spring, but we're really finding, and from this study that was done, this research, they say leave the leaves all year. That, the cleanup should be old bushes or things that, but try to leave the leaves as many places as you can, okay? Because they also, they put a lot of nutrients into the ground. I mean, we're trying to protect our earth here too. So every time you put down pesticides, it goes into the earth or into water. So that's all you need to do. Now, there is a bigger one if you have many more plants. There's a Monroe County pollinator-friendly certification, and that's the website you want to go on. That will tell you. They're much more. They have, they want about 27 plants, okay, to achieve that. But, I mean, that would be, you may have that, very easily. You do have to pay for their sign, though. Ours are free. So, but, I mean, that's part of it. They can't be giving away, it costs quite a bit of money to make one of the signs. Not this little one, but the others, so.
Other questions?
I just wonder if, Arlene, do you know, are we close to having 10 on our property? Because you're very aware of it, I know.
Yeah, probably we're at least halfway there.
I see, I was afraid. We're only halfway there. We got to get some more.
You're going to get this sign. You want a sign.
So, Mary, you mentioned the Great Embankment,
Yeah.
and we were over there the other day with our dog and noticed that there's a couple daffodil plants in that meadow.
Yeah,
And there's daffodil plants on the trail, too. And I'm wondering, I don't think daffodils are native.
well,
Or-
yeah, interestingly enough, no, they're not. But again, the Monroe County Extension has a list of plants that are not. By the way, I don't think we planted those.
I think probably some
I think they
squirrels
came
planted them.
accidentally. They came in the mulch.
Okay, yeah.
But daffodils are also good so early for some bees. They're not native, but sometimes you can combine, and that's what you really should be, be easier to do. Add your native plants to what you already have. If you have daffodils, don't take them out. Don't take those kinds of things out. Just add. We don't want to make it so difficult for people to have native plants, or we won't have them. Who's going to be digging up? So again, the Monroe County Extension has some great ideas for different bulbs that you can put in that are not native, and they tell you that. They'll say they're not native. They also have a list of plants that are not native, that spread too much, and they take the place. They're not invasive. They just are things like lily of the valley, tree of heaven. I'm trying to think, I have, the list is on the website. And what they're saying, there's about 6 of them, because that's what, people were told to plant. This is a great ground cover, they were told. And they're beautiful, and they smell really nice. But the other side of it is, they spread so much that they take away the space for native plants. So we don't hate them, no. We're just trying to, make some space for others. So there's, this doesn't have to be all native plants or nothing. Just keep adding. Find a space and find a native plant you think is going to grow. It might be even better to be in an area where there's other plants. Okay, that might keep the deer away. I don't know. No. But don't forget, when you do this, you're gardening for life. And the life is the life of our insects and our birds and our wildlife. Okay.
Other
Thanks, guys.
questions?
That was really great. I actually started with pollinators in my former home with a raised bed, and one of the greatest joys I had was planting the Joe Pye weed and watching the monarchs just, and I'm praying that back in the swamp area that we have some native Joe Pye weed,
Yeah,
and
because it loves moisture.
maybe we can add some more or
Yeah.
something. But I was curious with the swamp grass, I don't know what the formal name is, but does that overtake the Joe Pye weed? Because it'd be so pretty to have it along the, where they mow. You know what I mean? But there's a lot of swamp grass.
I don't know. How
We have a lot of Phragmites back there,
Oh,
which is, I think, probably the problem. Yeah.
We have what?
I think it's Phragmites. I have been told that it's invasive, and that's invasive, or it takes over, it outgrows stuff.
I don't know if they consider the word invasive yet, but it definitely is not native. And it is taking over from our other, our other plants. But I think the Joe Pye is a pretty strong plant. I tried to get it out once.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
The roots of native plants are considerable.
Yes.
And that's, so the native Joe Pye weed is a plant that I love. My gosh, I looked up the research. I wondered, where did the name Joe Pye came? Where did it come from? I looked through so much. I never really found exactly, but it seemed to be from a Native American who used the plant as a medicinal plant. Most native plants have medicinal value, and native people have been using them for years. So it had, the name of the Native American is so long that I think they might have just started calling him Joe Pye. And I'm not sure because it didn't say where the pie actually came from, but I believe that's, and it's so native plants, remember, have been here before settlers. That's the definition of a native plant, before settlers came here. So that's way back in what, 1500s, 1600s? Okay, so they've been here living and doing what they're supposed to do. But I would try it. You know,
Because it really is amazing once the monarchs start
Yeah.
flocking toward it. It's,
and they love to be on the side of water, the moisture.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's why I was thinking when I moved
Yeah.
here that it would be really
It's a
nice.
huge plant, grows very high.
Cool, yeah, yeah. And I was curious whether we had some already or we could
Yeah.
add some, or you don't think we do? Okay.
I haven't seen it back there. I will say that the Nazareth students who were here last week talking about our ponds, they're going to start working on what they're calling invasive or maybe overspreading type plants. And if they start to get a handle on some of that, maybe we have some more room for Joe Pye too.
The other plant that, we actually need, and we're losing our monarchs pretty quickly, the western, so there are monarchs who, different generations fly back to Mexico, but also they fly to California. There's an area there. Those western are down 99%. The eastern butterflies, monarchs that are, again, generations, they change. So they're in a little better shape. So we still have a chance. And I don't know if you've ever smelled common milkweed, but I wish it could be made into a perfume. It is beautiful. It is just, I just love to stand near it. So, again, people say, oh, well, they spread. Well, yeah, we want them to spread. We want the monarchs on them. You can take them easily out. It's not a big deal. First person who told me, they said, well, you have milkweed in your community garden. The community garden, it will spread. I was like, I can easily take those plants out. It's not like it's going to attack them. So I just found that kind of comical. And people say, oh, we'll spread. But I wanted it to spread, not there so much. I was really experimenting with them there to see, whether they were going to grow and what that plant was like, because each of the plants have a different life, just like we all do. We're all individuals. So I don't want to keep you any longer. Thanks. Unless you have questions.
Any other questions?
Did I get you enthusiastic about native plants? Yes?
Yes.
All right.
I'll have that information in my office, and we can make copies. You can borrow it. I also have a couple of the Doug Tallamy books in the office that can be checked out. So if anybody wants to learn more.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.